You're now listening to the SportsPro podcast show. Welcome back, listeners. Michael Long here, Director of Key Projects at SportsPro, and we're dropping a new episode outside our regular scheduled programming to bring you an exclusive live recording from our Global SportsTech Report 2026 launch event, held in partnership with Sportradar recently at Meta's headquarters in London. We had a room full of leaders and innovators listening in, and now you get to do the same. So let's get into the conversation.
Hello and welcome back for the second part of our event today. And I've never done a live podcast before. This is going to be fun. Thank you very much for joining us today. I have an illustrious panel representing various parts of the sports technology ecosystem to talk about the findings from the Global SportsTech Report and a few other things beside. If I could ask you all to introduce yourself first and just get a little bit of an idea of what you do at your organizations, how you interact with sports technology. Adam?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Adam Azor. I'm the EVP Global Marketing at Sportradar. And my role in marketing at Sportradar is quite privileged in the fact that we sit across all of the different products and services that we service the industry on. So we get to look at how we're building technologies for broadcast or for marketing services or coaching and scouting across the sports betting portfolio and also across the integrity services regarding the anti-match fixing and monitoring around that. So we're very fortunate to see how technology is evolving and changing and creating value for our clients and partners at Sportradar.
And Michael?
Michael Cole, the CTO for the European Tour Group, which is the DP World Tour is shown on the slide here. But in addition to that, it's the Hotel Planner Tour, which is our Challenge Tour, and our Legends Senior Tour. And then the Ryder Cup as well. So I represent the Ryder Cup Europe team. Responsibility, all technology, both from an organizational perspective, from a tournament perspective, from a broadcast TV perspective, and that extends to around about 100 tournaments in about 50 different countries worldwide. So, fairly complex, keeps me busy.
And last but not least,
how to follow that. Hi, everyone. I'm Will Pithers, work in the sports partnerships team at Meta. Been here 6 years. You are in our building today. Welcome, everyone. I promise that's not the only reason I'm on the panel. Our team really does two things. The bread and butter really is encouraging more good organic content on our platforms. So to that end, I manage our relationships with sports teams, leagues, broadcasters. Some of my colleagues over there work with athletes as well. So we try to cover basically the whole sports ecosystem. Help those people to optimize their content for our platforms and help it get seen by as many people as possible. And then the second half of our role, which is kind of, I'm sure we'll come into the conversation a bit later, is sort of acting as the interface between the sports industry and Meta as a company as it relates to partnerships that our teams might want to explore around things like Meta AI with people like Mercedes, Formula One team, or in the wearable space as well. So it's a dual function, really.
It's okay, we believe you. It's not just because you have the room. But I mean, you're contributed in various forms to this report, which is quite a substantial piece of work. I'm working for several months. And again, I encourage everyone in the room to read at your leisure and everyone listening as well to download it. And it won't come as a surprise to anyone that AI was a constant theme. And it's now, again, we're moving from an experimental phase to application and tangible use cases. So from your experience, to what extent is AI becoming a reality? We're moving on from hype into serious ways that this is helping sport in various parts of the ecosystem.
Sure. Would you like me to kick off?
As the closest person, yeah, you can go for it.
So, yeah, look, I think you articulate it really well, Steve. I think the most important thing to say when we talk about AI as well is, at Sportradar, we've been using AI and machine learning for about a decade. And the reason being, if you even just look at the sports betting world, you look at live odds, which is pretty much how the world bets. It's an impossibility to not be using AI and machine learning to do that, to make sure that industry has been working. I think obviously over the last few years, the evolution is around the generative AI and that the changes that has, well, it's creating, it's shaping, it's building, it's disrupting. And I think, yes, it is now being embedded in, as the statistics in the report show. And I think that goes not only from an operational way of working perspective, and I think maybe a lot of the people here today, you think about how you're starting to use AI in your own workflows, but think about what that also means in regards to talent strategy, ways of working, supplier relationships, technology stack. That operational layer is fundamentally important, and I think that's being embedded now, and that's before you then start to capitalize on what the opportunities that generative AI are producing in terms of value creation, fan engagement, monetization. So I think absolutely categorically, we can't escape this. There's no point trying to pretend it's not happening. It has to be embraced, and the motto really is innovate or die.
And Michael?
It really depends on how you define AI. On the one hand, I would define it as automated integration, and we've been doing that for a number of years. An example being around our player payments. At the end of every tournament, you make the cut. We have a prize fund. Those that make the cut get paid out of the prize fund. That traditionally has taken 5 days and lots of manual involvement in spreadsheets and all the rest of it. And we've taken that process and we've automated it through integration, and now we do that in not 5 days, but 5 clicks. For me, that is a degree of automation, and I think that's really where AI is heading. We use it in other aspects of our business already. We've got George in the audience, and through our content cloud editing, we're using the capability for AI to allow us to auto-clip and do content production in far more efficient ways than we were able to do previously. We run it on our chatbot. We're now selling tickets through AI capability. At the Ryder Cup, we developed a capability with Capgemini, one of our partners, around Outcome IQ, which is all about predictions. So it is here. Is it here at scale? I think one of the big industry challenges is how you can truly monetize AI around generative AI and create a commercial model that will establish a payback, a return on that investment. And I think that's one of the industry challenges still, to get that model right. I think where AI is going is very much around the agentic capability, and I'm sure we'll come on to that as well. But for me, whilst we're doing automated integration and have been for a while, whilst we're tinkering with AI capability in its generative kind of format, the real value, the real benefit will come out of agentic AI. Because for me, in my complexity of the world in which we operate, we're looking to drive operational efficiency, and that's a big game changer. And we're not there yet. We're certainly not there at scale, but I know that we're putting in place a roadmap and a pathway that's going to get us to that point.
I think that's a really good point in terms of how what form AI takes. We've gone from predictive AI and automation through to the current generative products we're seeing, and then moving on to agentic AI. Will, what's your take?
Yeah, a lot of that resonated with me too, actually. I think probably it won't surprise people to know that as a big tech company, we're living it. The way I've heard it talked about internally is the kind of feel that there are parallels between working on AI now with, in the early mid-2010s, working on mobile, right? You didn't, once the kind of shift to mobile came, you didn't decide you wanted to move companies or move teams to work on mobile. You just started working on mobile, right? And I think anyone who's working on a digital product at Meta now is working on AI. If you work on Threads, you're working on AI. If you work on Instagram, you're working on AI. And I think probably, and again, not so much my world, but I was talking to one of our engineers yesterday who said that the rate at which they're able to ship code updates is increased 10, 20x. And the thing that really holds us up now is the privacy reviews. It's the kind of the bureaucratic stuff. In terms of the building, you can do it very, very fast. And so I think it's sort of revolutionizing our products behind the scenes more so than in a super visible way. And then the other thing I would just add, just on the basis of, I guess, my experience working with rights holders in sports, is that similarly, the kind of the most innovative use cases I see of AI are those that are almost also the most boring, the stuff that drives ad optimization. Like you run an ad on Meta's platform now, there's a little button that says optimize with AI. You click that button, it will perform better than if you're messing around with, testing yourself and different variants. The stories I've heard from heads of digital at sports teams who say, we use LLMs for ideation on content. So, ask the LLM, hey, what are Thierry Henry's best 10 goals in an Arsenal shirt? And it will, throw them out for you. And it might not be correct, but actually that's fine because it drives conversation, it drives debate in the comments. And then they'll use an AI tool to rifle through their archive and pick out those clips automatically and turn it into a compilation video, right? Archive is a massive part of successful content. So that kind of thing, which is a bit unsexy, but in terms of bolstering your content offering, reinvigorating your approach to your archive, it's really revolutionary in many ways.
Yeah,
I think just to, Adam, just to kind of add that in terms of where we're at on our journey, just to put it into some context, the industry is moving incredibly fast, for sure. When I came into position back in 2017, in golf, the device that we will have in our pockets, maybe two, the smartphone device, wasn't really permitted to be used for the golf tournament. It was considered an infringement of rights, a distraction to the players. In fact, if you were caught using the smartphone in the golf tournament, you were asked for your ticket, you were given a little tick, in 3 ticks you were kindly escorted out. That was back in 2017. We've come a huge way since then. In fact, I kind of frame it like we're into our second phase of general transformation. Phase 1 was around digital transformation. We started that in our journey back in 2017, 2018. Yes, like many organizations, the dreaded pandemic came along and that accelerated and amplified the digital transformation. But the way I look at it now is we are embarking on the second phase of transformation, an AI-driven transformation. And we're just really at the start of that journey.
I just wanted to add something inspired by Will, and in the theme of boring, not what your content was boring, but talking about something which is boring, but for me fundamentally important, and going to also what Michael was talking about in terms of the future is you can't talk just about AI and the capabilities of AI without flipping back and thinking about data. And this is an incredibly boring but incredibly important point, but good organization and categorization of data is fundamentally important for you to be taking advantage of AI and the agentic capabilities of AI. So anyone right now that has responsibility for that, and if you don't, speak to someone and make sure that's being set up, because you really need to audit and structure and make sure that your data is set up, categorized in a good way. Because all these amazing innovations and pieces of technology that are going to create so much value will be irrelevant if it can't then source and get into your data in an effective way. So incredibly boring, but incredibly important.
Yeah, Michael, it's interesting that you brought that up about mobile, because golf's relationship with the mobile phone is something that I always bring up, because I didn't go to the Open Championship one year. It was a last-minute decision because I couldn't use my phone. This was in 2011. And then I went to St Andrews a couple of years ago and had this amazing app, and I got all these course features, and it's amazing how attitudes have changed. And I think in terms of mobile, and it leads me on to the next point about fan engagement, I think it will come as no surprise to anyone about the second screen and the importance of second screen. And that's becoming a bit of a battlefield now. There's lots of people competing for that attention. Broadcasters are trying to be the first and the second screen. We've got social platforms investing in their capabilities. So Will, I'm going to stick with you because I want some boring content. How do you see it at Meta in terms of that second screen and that journey to get fans' attention, to build on events? How is tech and how is AI changing that?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's undeniable that we at social media is not the only second screen experience anymore, right? And I think about, the revamped Premier League app, the Champions League app. They're brilliant digital experiences that really bolster your experience of watching the game on TV. So yeah, you might look at it in one way and say, yeah, this is a competitor for the social platforms. I think the thing that we feel we do best, and we will try to continue to do best, is the storytelling. The stories behind the athletes, which I think will inevitably always have the largest scale. We sort of, it's a bit provocative, but we sort of joke in the office that social media used to be the second screen and now it's the first screen. And the example we used when we were kicking this around at the end of last year was that week when Mo Salah had that incident where he talked about how he'd been dropped by the Liverpool hierarchy and he wasn't very happy. And we did a show of hands at an event that we had that week, and it was like, how many of you watched the game this weekend that he played in? Actually, I don't know if anyone can even remember who they were playing that week, but it was Leeds. So show of hands who watched it live, show of hands who watched the highlights, slightly more people. And then, okay, how many of you saw the image on Mo Salah's Instagram of him training alone in the gym? The picture tells 1,000 words. And so I think we strongly believe that, and we feel like we have those stories, and we're the natural place for those stories to start. And where it used to be that, you'd start with the live, and then you might watch long-form highlights, and then you might, check the story behind it. Often now the starting point for people is that bit that used to be at the bottom is now the starting point rather than the end point. And so we'll continue to try and sort of like make that the thing that social does. And I think the key advantage that we have is that it's where athletes will go. It's their kind of main outlet, and that's something we'll look to hold on to.
Adam, as someone that works across that space, you work with digital players, you work with betting companies, you work with broadcasters. How do you see that?
I mean, I think very much aligns with it was as Will was articulating it, and I think it's interesting. We were having a conversation about second screen the other day. You also go to the younger generations, but that's a misnomer. It's like second screening is all generations. The boomers are second screening, so it's not the prevalent of just a younger organisation. A younger age group, but the main thing I would say is it always comes back to context. So storytelling, I think, is a really good example of that. So if you're a fan, you're having experience, you kind of don't necessarily think about first screen, second screen. It's all one consistent experience. So then I come back to, well, what is it you're looking to do and engage with a person? It's probably where my marketing head comes on. So I think, firstly, the ability to seamlessly augment and improve the experience as a fan is an interesting one. So we were doing a lot of work in our Foresight technology, which is very much around augmented screening. And we did a partnership with NBC and Peacock, where they adapted that and tailored to something called Performance View. And that was very much as a viewer having the ability to have augmented engagements, information brought into the broadcast. Now, whether that's on the first screen or you're adapting it via the second screen, it's kind of relevant. It's the ability to then go into that. So how technology is augmenting that either from an experience perspective or connecting you as part of a community and having engagement, which historically what was been on through social media, and now that's a wider opportunity. And then if you think about the monetization, what that opens up is commercialization, advertising, personalization, and context to what's happening. So again, from a inventory and a marketing and activation point of view, it really opens the doors.
And Michael, obviously you have your media partners, but you also have first-party platforms. People want this second screen experience when they're watching golf. How have you seen that change?
Yeah, I mean, not only do we now permit the mobile phone into golf tournaments, and Steve, do come and experience it, because actually that device is now your ticket, it's your content, it's your wayfinding, it's a second screen, it's all of those things. So, we've gone from not permitting to actively encouraging, please. I think also we need to think about the fans, and I think we need to recognize still that there are two forms of fans. You have what I call the on-course spectator, and then you have the armchair fan. And I think the access to the content is doing different things for each category. The armchair fan undoubtedly needs that second screen device to keep them informed, give them as much information, additional information that they can A lot of it is available for the TV, so it's very much there in a supplementary format. For the on-course spectator, certainly in our world, it's very different. I spoke about complexity. We're not a venue. We're 18 holes. In fact, we're 18 fields of play. We don't have 2 teams. We've got 156 players. We don't play for 90 minutes. We play for 4 days. And we don't even follow the same format. We go from stroke play to Ryder Cup, team play, match play. So our world is very complicated. As a on-course spectator, when you're watching the game over the 13th, our job and our challenge is how we keep you informed of what else is going on across that tournament. And that is a different set of requirements that we have to deliver through that on-course experience. We also need to get the right compromise. It's what I call keeping the head up, not the head down. And we don't want people wandering around totally fixated with the phone. It's important, naturally. But equally, it's about keeping them in the moment of the sport. If anyone saw the Ryder Cup this year on day 3, that was pure drama. You didn't want to miss any of that for any reason. And one of the biggest challenges that we have is how we can bridge that gap between the on-course spectator and the armchair fan. And certainly the technology allows us to do that. We just have to do that in the right way, in the right time.
Yeah, don't worry, golf has become a lot nicer to me. I can have my phone and also this complimentary sunscreen, which I very much appreciate. Mike, I'm going to stick with you because we're going to talk about personalization. I think golf is a really interesting use case because you can't watch everything. It's impossible. It takes place over, at home you can't see every shot. It just takes too much time, or some of it's not relevant to you. You want to follow certain groups or certain players. And on the course, you might follow a certain group, and you want the experience tailored to how you watch golf. How is personalization changing how you serve fans, and what are the priorities for you as an organization?
Well, to start with, the personalization is critical and becoming more and more critical. Certainly to fulfill the changing requirements in the younger generation in how they want to consume content and at the channel that they want to consume it on. One of the things that we're doing is to think about technology not as a destination but an experience, and creating that critical data and content in the way that individuals want to consume that content. And comes back to what I was saying previously. We need to think about them in 2 ways. They're either on course, different set of requirements, or they're an armchair fan, different set of requirements. But ultimately, we want to give people the choice, and that can only come through personalization. But you've got to have the right platforms in place to drive that personalization. That doesn't come easy, and it isn't straightforward. But it can manifest in a number of different ways. From the fan that is wandering around the course, and they're in the vicinity of the merchandise, and we happen to know for our technology that actually the volumes are pretty low, so now is a good time to go in and buy those products, to the fan that actually is only interested in getting a better understanding of what Tommy Fleetwood is doing or what John Rahm is doing, and they want to personalize their content. They may not have visibility because they're on the 15th and the guys are, Shane Lowry or whatever is on a completely different hole. So ensuring that we can get the right content to them, irrespective of where they're at on the course. The broadcast, I think, is a little different because through George's team in the broader European Tour Productions, we've got a really good world feed that enables the armchair fan generally to get good visibility of what's going on. Golf in its world feed production is both linear but non, if that makes sense, because the way it's kind of stitched together with live content and content that is maybe was played out 2 or 3 minutes ago. But we generally serve the purposes. However, that second screen device and that personalization is still critical because fans these days want to know even more about individuals, about matchings, about the players, and only the technology delivered through the web and the app can really deliver that in the platforms that we have today.
Yeah, when I was younger or growing up, when I first watched golf, I just thought they were really quick. In terms of how it's cut in between, for the viewer experience, that's a good point. Adam, what's your take on this? Obviously, you deal with both the engagement and also the marketing side as well with sport. How is personalization changing those?
So I think, as Michael was saying, the engagement stuff I think is a really interesting. It's giving the ability for people to choose and to customize, and that's just human nature. That's something we crave and like. I think when it comes to the marketing implications of that, you think of those two combinations, right? So the more you get into personalization, the more you understand about the person, the more contextual you can then be with the marketing opportunity around that. Marketing is incredibly simple. Right message, right time, right audience. And only people generally who are marketeers, you try to like to overcomplicate things. So if you think about personalization or hyper-personalization, what that's doing is really supercharging marketing's ability to be contextual and in the moment. And in the moment point is a really important one. Because we span two worlds in regards to the sport data and the technology and the real-time data, and we say real-time, we're talking like milliseconds real-time, that's how we talk about latency and data. That ability to fuse real-time into personalized marketing activations is where it gets really interesting. So we've been working with a number of partners where we've been able to take real-time moments and integrate them into live advertising. And it should make no one surprised that if you do that, we were seeing over 100% increases in click-through rates. Why? Because the right action that is happening is being integrated and personalized to the receiver, and they're seeing that and then going and behaving around that. So that combination of personalization, real-time data, and then really advanced marketing technology in us in terms of our marketing services portfolio, we've seen that really aggressively provide a lot of benefit. And I think that's another interesting monetization opportunity off the back of it.
And Will, you work for a company that knows quite a lot about the people that use your services. You also deal with algorithms. That's personal experience based on those preferences. What's the personalization story on social media? How is tech changing how fans are served content, or even the types of content that they want?
We think about this through a content lens, obviously. Think about it through the lens of distribution and content creation. Personalization I think it's at the heart of the essence of social media, right? The news feed launched on Facebook in 2006, and the whole, that is predicated on the idea that what you want to see in your feed is not the same as what, someone else might want to see in their feed, or what this sports fan wants to see is not what this sports fan wants to see, and so we'll kind of share, recommend, surface different content to different people. I think on the, so we've been doing it a long time. I think the difference now is everyone's getting much better at it. And maybe AI is speeding up that process too. When I think about it through the lens of distribution, it's content recommendation algorithms, right? We live in a world now where the content you see in your feeds is based not on what your friends and family are doing, your social graph, but more on what you're doing. So content-based recommendations understands that if you're watching a lot of this type of content, we'll serve you more of that. And the other thing, new features and new features that sort of lean into this are popping up all the time. So on Threads, our text-based app, we just launched this thing called Dear Algo, where you can write a post addressed to the algorithm to say, hey, I'd like to see more of this, this, and this. And our LLMs basically analyze the text that you use and figure out, okay, that sort of categorize it into certain buckets and then decide what content you should see more in your feed. And over the next few days, you'll see more of those kinds of things. So that's on the distribution side. And then the creation side is really like powering our creators, helping them to figure out more quickly what works and what doesn't. And so we brought out years ago this tool on Facebook called A/B testing, which is basically post-testing for organic content. And we encourage people to make a couple of different versions of their video and see which one worked better. And most people, some sports rights holders I work with who had more employees, more staff, really leaned into that and saw the benefit of it. But most of them just say, we don't have time for this. And the reality is now that you do, right? You can create the version of the video, put it into whichever, name your favorite tool, and it will spit out not just A, B, but A, B, C, D, E, F, G. and you can post them all to, Trial Reels is our product where you can put things out for 24 hours amongst the global Instagram audience, except your current followers. And it will figure out for you which of those is the best performing. And you do that over time, and you'll really get to the point where you optimize. You figure out, okay, this is what the perfect match highlights video looks like, and that's really powerful. And that used to be only within the reach of the largest organizations, and I think it's sort of democratized that content creation process. So yeah, it's really exciting.
What's happening now and next in sports tech? As AI adoption accelerates rapidly, the inaugural Global SportsTech Report from SportsPro and Sportradar reveals which technologies and trends are driving real business impact across 6 core areas of sport. Informed by a global survey of senior executives and insights from leading tech and sport organizations, the report offers a 360-degree view of what's working today and where the industry is headed tomorrow. Access the full report via the SportsPro website.
You're now listening to the SportsPro podcast show.
I've gone from, when it comes to something like expected goals, I've gone from what on earth is this? Get it off my screen to that's actually quite a useful way of seeing how the match might go in a little statistic. But we are capturing more data than ever before from the field, the court, the arena. It's all getting fed into algorithms that's transforming this data into hopefully something useful. It's not just raw statistics. Well, at least you hope so anyway. How is this deeper level of insight aiding those engagement efforts in terms of the type of content you can provide to fans? I think I think about rugby, for example. I think that's a sport that could really benefit from this because it's quite a complicated game. But I do think it is helping sport just deepen that engagement. What are we doing with this data? How is it transforming how we, I don't really engage directly with fans, but how the industry interacts with fans? Adam?
Yeah, look, we talk about deep data quite a bit in sport, and maybe it's just worth explaining a little bit of context around that. And let's start with how data historically has been captured. And data historically has been captured by humans and the human eye. And if you let's take tennis as a really good example, right? We're watching Alcaraz, we're watching Sinner, we're watching him play at Wimbledon. We'll be able to see how many rallies they're having, we've seen points, and maybe be able to see some of the how fast they were serving. But we're limited by the human eye. What we've been working on for a number of years at Sportradar is computer vision for sport. And the reason why that's important is it removes those restrictions of the human eye. So we're not just limited by those data points in those areas we've been seeing. Now we're saying, well, what angle of the racket is Alcaraz holding that racket? How quickly is Sinner moving left and right? Then we can look at their individual data in real time of their performance. We can look at everyone's data sets in real time against that performance. We can then correlate weather temperature and historic data in real time. And the reason this is important is what you're doing is you're capturing huge amounts of data points. You're combining that with real-time data. And then what we do is Minority Report style is essentially predictive model that. So we're basically saying what's going to happen next. Now, the beauty of sport means no matter how good the prediction is, something you may not expect will obviously still happen. But on a large scale, we are saying what is going to happen before it happens with that data point. That's the change. That's what computer vision is now able to do. And with that, if you think about a betting perspective, obviously that's where the bookmakers are very happy about that because it means they can set their odds better, they can minimize their losses, they can make more opportunity, but the data that's being collected and technology around that opens up everything in regards to fan engagement, training application around that point. But I think it's important when we talk about sort of the deep data and computer and why it's so transformational. And that's the combination of the technology and the computer, and it is incredible. We talk about it in this thing, the work that goes into modeling and making computer vision work per sport, per tennis, per basketball, whatever it may be, is incredible. It takes a lot of work and a lot of talent, but once you have that, the opportunities are endless.
And Michael, how, from your perspective, how is data transferring both in terms of, I guess, how you engage your fans, but also, there's obviously there's a performance element to this for some of the players, and you work in a sport with a passionate leisure base. I'm going to call it people who watch golf, want to see how the pros are doing it, see if there's anything they can take into their game. How is that changing what you do? This data, are you capturing everything you want to? You're making the most use of it?
We're certainly not short of data sources, that's for sure. I won't repeat what Adam's just articulated in terms of the better market, other than to say that actually we use Sportradar for our data collection for that purpose. And what people don't necessarily see or know is on every single stroke, on every single player, we're capturing up to 15 data points. So across 156 players, over 4 days, 18 holes, that's a lot of data. People talk about data being king, about being critical. Yes, it is. But in my world, in my mind, data is only the foundational level, because what's really important is data drives insight, and insight drives intelligence. And that intelligence then creates what I call operational outcomes. And so whilst we're using it for the betting market, whilst we're using it for scoring and all the things that you would expect us to use it for, perhaps what people aren't so familiar with is how we use data at the Ryder Cup. We were capturing everything. We have around about 400 buggies for Ryder Cup. They do go missing. We like to track them and who's driving them. Weather, again, it's critical, particularly for the broadcasters. We have weather stations pretty much on every hole, and they themselves are capturing around about 12 different measurements of data of weather every 3 seconds. But we're also ingesting all of our merch data, all of our food, all of our beverage data. We're using computer vision analytics to monitor queue times. I could tell you at the Ryder Cup that the longest wait that anyone had in the merch tent was 14 minutes and 29 seconds. I could tell you that the longest queue was 144 people. I could tell you in food and beverage what the top selling brand was in drink. I could tell you what the top selling category was in drink. I could tell you how many people came into our merch on day one. I could tell you how many tickets were scanned over a certain period of time. You know, all of this information historically has been available to rights holders, but this was in real time. I had this in real time on what we call an intelligence dashboard. And we were able to act on that information. If the queue lengths got beyond a trigger point, we'd send people in, and we'd open up new point-of-sale facilities. If there was an underperforming concession on food and beverage, we'd want to know why, and we would understand. And we were using AI to drive those insights and actually telling us the symptoms that the technology was experiencing before we even knew about them. So, you know, this is a huge game changer in terms of operational delivery. Why do we do that? Why is it important? We have so much technology now at a golf tournament, and we're deploying that in the Ryder Cup for 3 days, at our DP World Tour tournament for 4 days. We don't have long to get that return on the investment. I was quite intrigued, actually, when I came in mid your session earlier. You were talking about Wi-Fi, and I think you said 50% of respondents viewed Wi-Fi
57%
connectivity as being critical. Yeah, I'd like to know about the other 43, because for me, and I don't want to be overly sensitive to this point I'm going to make, but for a lot of fans arriving at tournaments, connectivity is important, is food and water. They need it, because that's how they're getting their content, and that's how they're getting their enjoyment. We deploy over 1,000 access points for a 3-day tournament. So if we can do it, I don't understand why stadiums can't do it, because the return on the investment absolutely is there. That experience is essential. So coming back to data, yeah, it's critical, but it's changing not only the way fans interact with us, it's changing our entire operational delivery.
Just going to clarify that data point. So it was 50% believe it was had the biggest potential in stadiums and venues. There were other options that would rely on the connectivity. So I think it is a case where everyone does see it important, but you're absolutely right at how, you know, that's something that every venue should be getting right. There's the technology is evolving, whether it's access points that can be used by any network. It's definitely an area that we've seen considerable growth in. Immersive experiences are something I think that definitely going to take off. If they haven't already, it was definitely something that we saw in the report. We're seeing a revival of interest in what we call the mixed reality applications pioneered by, they're shifting more towards augmented reality rather than virtual reality because of several factors. Digital twins are creating immersive experiences on apps. We're seeing, game environments, all sorts of things are being developed. COSMs, shared reality facilities was an area something that we took a very keen interest in. How are these experiences transforming engagement and the types of engagement that can be offered to fans, and what they do differently? Do they attract a different audience? Is it something that has widespread appeal? Is it something that just, I guess, keeps fans interested for longer, or gets them interested in sports or events that they wouldn't otherwise? Well, your company's called Meta. How do immersive experience fit into this landscape?
Look, listening to you talk, Michael, about, as a fan wandering around the golf course with the head down, I was like, we should talk, because we have a glasses product that's aiming to try and work with that. I think look, much has been said about, Meta's investments in the metaverse and how we view it. I don't really particularly want to add to that. I think what I would say is that from what I see internally, it's not something that Meta is pulling back on the metaverse. It's more maybe a reevaluation about the form factor that it should take. And the VR headsets have found product market fit with gamers beyond the gaming user base, not massively, I think it's fair to say. And so it was always a kind of thinking to parallel track the glasses and think about what the future might look like with those. And the glasses are a hit. If anybody's tried them, but the Ray-Ban Meta that launched a couple of years ago expanded to Oakley Meta last year, which is really these augmented reality glasses that we're targeting at the sports audience. They sold 7 million headsets last year, same run rate as the iPhone in its first year. So not to kind of big us up too much, but you can start to see a path for mass product adoption for those things.
I was thinking of the Ray-Ban glasses, and that's something that came up in our research as driving this renewed interest. I remember Google Glass more than 10 years ago. I don't think it was quite there, but what Meta's investments in R&D, they have stimulated the ecosystem for these interactive experiences. I don't think it's inconsiderable, and obviously Apple's doing some work with the Vision Pro, and that's also popularizing the idea. But I definitely think form factor is becoming a thing. And I go on Instagram and I can see the little icon for someone who's done some content with their Ray-Ban. So I do think it is definitely having an impact.
Yeah, and look, that's not to say that there aren't some really cool experiences you can still have in virtual reality, right? And Meta has this partnership with the NBA. You can watch a game from courtside. It's a great experience if you've ever tried it. I'm sure lots of you saw what DAZN did with the kind of tabletop experience with the Club World Cup last summer. As a Formula One fan, I can really see that, right? On the table in front of the TV and really having an appreciation of where everyone is on the track. But I think the next era of it, to me, is figuring out how you get all the positive bits and the technology from the virtual reality headsets into the form factor of the glasses. Because we are a social company. You absolutely need to preserve the social experience of watching sport with someone else. And so I think that's the next challenge. It's how do you get all the good things about VR into the form factor?
And I would completely agree with that. Technology, it's got to be frictionless, and we don't want people wandering around with big headsets. It's not the look and feel that we're seeking. But absolutely, if we can do that in more of an immersive, frictionless way, then absolutely we would support that. We have our own digital twin, virtual twin. It's not yet projected onto a headset, but we project it onto big screens. But the whole concept is still there. It's how you take the physical world and put it into the virtual world. And what we do is we're taking all of those critical data points that Sportradar are collecting for us, and we're converting that into commentary and visualization So you could be watching your favorite players overlooking the 18th, but on the big screen behind you is highlight moments every 15 seconds recreated in the digital world. It is showing who's done the longest drive on the 7th, who the new clubhouse lead is. It's keeping people in the tournament whilst they're also within the enjoyment of the sport as well. So that is our compromise. But we're super excited about where this technology is heading. And we'd love to work with you guys in terms of how we take that forward.
I think when it's coming to like immersive experiences, we obviously go into like the three-dimensional immersive experiences, and I think it was making me smile when Will was talking about mobile. So I remember going back a decade or so ago, there was a period of 10 years, if anyone worked in marketing or advertising, where every year they say this is the year of mobile. This is the year of mobile, and then the next year would come and come and come, and then 10 years later, it was the year of mobile and it absolutely exploded. And that's because it was the perfect mixture of behavior, adoption, and it kicked in. And behavior and adoption is really important points, as we're talking about form factor. And again, another analogy let's think about TVs. Let's remember when we went from standard definition to high definition, everyone was like, great, that makes sense, it's just better, no change. And then we tried to do 3D TVs. Yeah, because it was all about 3D movies, and let's all put 3D TVs at home. But no one's thinking about the behavior, because not everyone wants to be sat there wearing 3D glasses while they may be doing something else around a family home, because the behavior wasn't right. And then what happens? That dies away, and then 4K comes in, back to where we were. And the reason that's important is because of the behavior, the adoption is going into that mainstream opportunity. So when we start thinking about immersive experiences becoming and unleashing their full potential, it's the point of when does it become a mainstream tipping point? Is it the form factor, the adaptation, the AR? I love my Quest 3. I really do. I'm a bit of a geek. I actually worked on the original launch of Oculus back in the day, and that was a lot of fun. But I'm the weirdo on the plane that's got my Quest 3 on, watching that content and enjoying it with my glass on, but it's not to that point to take advantage of it.
Do you think it's fair to say we're still in an era where we're doing some things just because we can? And it's not necessarily the right thing to do. I can hear about these apps where, now you can comb through 30 years of archive and find whatever you want. It's like, okay, but the audience, unpopular opinion maybe, but like the audience who are most likely to engage with the technology is a younger audience, is the same audience who we're hearing can't keep their attention spans and doesn't want to watch the 90 minutes and doesn't, they're kind of pulling back. So it kind of feels to me as an armchair fan here that like sometimes we just do things because we can. It's not necessarily the right thing to do.
I 100% agree. I always think the famous Jeff Goldblum quote from Jurassic Park, they were so worried about whether they could, they didn't stop to think if they should, right? Apply that to tech. Right, we're so much thinking just because we do it, we do it. And that's why I come into immersive experiences. You mentioned COSM. COSM, I think, is a really good parallel to that. Because it's not three-dimensional per se, but COSM, if you've seen it, it's this big like IMAX-type screen. They have their own production cameras around it, and we were lucky enough to go to that last year in the LA one. And that's immersive. It's fully immersive in the production, in the way that it's natural and the behaviors there. So I think that's when we start talking about immersive experiences, the integration of fan engagement, how statistics and errors can go in, multi-screen. For me, that's all immersion. I'm super excited about the three-dimensional capabilities and when that reaches its opportunity to be scaled and it's enough there. And I think that'll bring amazing opportunities. But right now, immersive is there. It's just kind of a different format.
One area of the report that we've not discussed, the report focuses on 6 key areas. And betting and gaming is one of them. And it'd be remiss of me not to discuss this with you, Adam, in terms of how tech is both transforming betting and also becoming increasingly influential in sport in terms of the innovations developed for it. Where is the space going? What trends are you seeing? What's next for the industry?
It's a very big topic, so I'll probably just kind of give a headline view around it and focus on why I think it's important and why it benefits the wider ecosystem. And I think there is, coming back to the heart and soul of it, there is, we talked about the computer vision. That's a fantastic example. There's so many foundational technologies that are encapsulating data and deep data and building real-time infrastructures that, of course, are benefiting and evolving sports betting. But realistically, those technologies, and Sportradar is a great example of that, we're then applying that to broadcast, to fan engagement, to integrity services, through to sports performance. So the technologies, the models, the algorithms, everything for that is benefiting and supercharging the whole of the sports ecosystem. I think if you look at it in context, why is it so sexy in this world? It's the revenue potential, right? And I think we can't get away from that. Sports betting, as it came out in the report, is a great opportunity to generate revenue. Whenever that is the rights, whether it's about the betting capabilities, the whole marketing services around it. So I think, look, we're very proud of the role that Sportradar have. We essentially built the technology which runs the global sports industry when it comes to sports betting. But we're very proud more so about how we took and evolved that technology into the other areas of the sports ecosystem.
I think you did quite a good job summarising that, actually. I was looking at the clock. Mike, I want to come back to you for something that you spotted, that you mentioned earlier, and it was about agentic AI. And I think it'd be useful just to summarise what that is. So we go, the different areas of AI. This is something that was mentioned quite a few times during research. What is agentic AI, and what does it mean for, well, not just for sport, but for the field generally?
Well, I guess at a super high level, what agentic AI is not only the ability to create some form of generative kind of content, but actually take action on that content. And that is the difference between asking an AI application capability to create some source content that you're looking for, but then use the artificial intelligence to physically take action on that. I think, certainly from a rights holder perspective, this has a huge potential for us in terms of the level of investment. Come back to that world of complexity that we operate, and the amount of technology that we're deploying. We're not doing just one-off tournaments. We're doing 44 tournaments in 26 different countries on the DP World Tour. To put that into context, the amount of cost and expenditure to do that is enormous. So we operate in this complex world, and we have to simplify. Agentic AI has a capability of simplifying some of that operational delivery. Do I need a bunch of IT managers on site managing the 4 or 5 infrastructures that we deliver for every tournament, when actually the technology can be spotting the symptoms and then importantly acting on those symptoms so that they're solving the problems before they even manifest? That's the point we want to get to. And there are many other examples of where agentic AI has real practical purposes in our world. On the back of house operational, in HR, in legal, in marketing. We're just building out our new customer database. And historically, we haven't done a great job in terms of how we capture customer data. We kind of run a database and we capture email addresses, but we don't really know much more about those individuals. I think the importance of customer data is going to become critical in the future, leveraging social media platforms like Facebook and other social media engagements, understanding how our fans navigate across those, what are the sources of content they're looking for, how they behave at tournaments. It's what we call the fan 360. And the reason that is important, yes, there may be a direct monetization of that data in the future, whether it be direct to consumer, whatever it might be. But equally, having that 360 knowledge will enable us to create a channel that becomes beneficial for negotiation in future media rights, in broadcast rights, in partner sponsorship rights as well. And the pillars of principle that we work to, if you think about a fan that comes to a tournament, generally, the majority of our fans come to one tournament because we do 26 different countries. We don't have that many traveling fans, apart from the Ryder Cup. So taking their journey from one day that they attend the course to every day is critical. And then conversely, if we take something like the Ryder Cup, 50,000 fans in a single day, we've got 60, 70 million people around the planet watching the tournament. So how we go from local to global. So those are 2 guiding principles in terms of how we leverage that data from one day to every day, local to global. And if we get that model right, we will truly have a key asset that we know that will become increasingly valuable, not only to us in terms of direct-to-consumer, but equally for our partners, media, broadcasters, sponsors into the future.
To wrap things up, I'd just like to hear from you about what's a piece of sports technology that you thought was really cool or really impressive? It can be your own if you want to, but is there something that's really piqued your interest? Adam?
I'm not going to choose something of our own, but I'm going to... You mentioned the Intuit Dome earlier on, and I was lucky enough to go to the Intuit Dome last year, which is just unbelievable. This is the LA Clippers Stadium, owned by Steve Ballmer, developers, and he really has put the developers to work on that stadium. It is a marvel. It is cashless, it is automated, it is incredible. But there was one thing I saw in there that I've never seen before, which is they have this screen, probably the size of the wall we're in here, and they call it the parallel reality screen. And basically, there could be 10 of you all walking together, going to that screen. Every single person would see something different. Going about the point of personalization, it knows who you are, the pixels are aligned to your eye line, and it's saying, welcome Adam, here's your seat. It would say, welcome Michael, this is your seat, here's your favorite snack. Will, this is your seat you're going at. We're all seeing it at the real time from the same screen. Blew me away, never seen it before, it was incredible.
I'm going to plug something. They were in our Ideas to Invest in Now class of 2025. I think it's Misapplied Sciences who do the technology. So, yeah, check that out on SportsPro. Michael, what have you seen that's impressed you?
I think some of the best technology that I haven't seen in person, but I'm very aware of it. It isn't my technology, but it is my industry, and I think that's the TGL model. For those that aren't familiar, whoever thought you could play golf on 18 holes in a single stadium, indoor venue? It's just absolutely incredible. They play off in the, they tee off in the virtual world and then walk over, and they have the ability through a stage environment to recreate 18 different holes. For me, the technology behind that is just phenomenal.
It's the greens that I can't get over. All the mechanics behind that is very, very impressive. And Will, is it going to be an unpopular opinion or is it going to be boring?
I'm going to sound like both a corporate shill and a Luddite. I've got two. The first one is it's on Instagram, is the AI-powered auto translations tool. Some of you might have seen this. There was this video with Jamie Carragher speaking Hindi in a Scouse accent that did the rounds in November. That was very funny. The thing that wowed me about it is the way that it keeps the kind of... It auto-translates, if you speak in English, it gives your viewers the option to view it in different languages. If they are in India, it will serve it to them in Hindi. It doesn't just translate it with text. It doesn't just do it with voice. It keeps the tone of voice, and it lip syncs. So Jamie Carragher genuinely looks like he's learned Portuguese, which is a small thing, but is... if you're trying to reach a global audience, is really revolutionary, and many partners of mine starting to see amazing results, growing audiences abroad where they just hadn't really thought that they could before. And then the Luddite answer is semi-automated offside technology. I think VAR is great, and someone can grab a beer and talk to me about this afterwards if you disagree. But like the way, and look, it's got a bad rap in the Premier League to date, but the semi-automated technology that makes it happen so much quicker. Like, I surely think it's better for everyone for us to get to the correct decisions. And just because he's a toe offside doesn't mean he's any less offside than if he's 5 feet offside. So I love it. I want to see more VAR, and I'm excited to see the developments in that space.
I think I said the exact same thing when I'm a Manchester United fan, when Coventry scored what they thought was a winner in the FA Cup. I was like, are we going to change the rules now? I don't think so. And your contributions have been anything but boring, Will. And as of all of yours, I wonder, just very quickly, one-word answer, what is the thing that excites you most in the next 12 months from sports technology?
You say one-word answer?
Well, it could be multiple words. One thing.
One thing is potential.
Michael?
What excites me about the future of technology, is that what you said? Yeah,
it could be a technology, it could be a trend, anything that you think is going to be something we should all keep an eye on, or something that excites you.
I think we'll keep one eye on space technology. Yeah. There are some phenomenal things happening right now, and excuse the pun, but it's going to be out of this world.
Very good. And Will?
Mine is like the democratization of AI tooling. There are so many things that you could only do historically. If you're a big organization, you had lots of people. And if you have the right tooling now, and I think it's incumbent upon leagues and federations in some cases to make sure that everybody gets the right tooling, you could see a much more competitive sporting landscape that I just think will make for better viewing. So.
Thank you for sticking to the one word, Adam. Please thank the panel, and thank you very much.